Welcome to our short discussion on the multiplication and division of signed numbers. Again, signed numbers just means things that can be either positive or negative. We have to remind ourselves that multiplication really just means a bunch of addition, right? 5 times 3 is really just 3 added together 5 times. So when we multiply negative numbers, we're just adding those negative numbers together, right? So 5 times negative 3 just means negative 3 added together 5 times. And that's why the solution, the answer, is negative 15. So whether it's negative 5 times 3, negative 5 times 2, negative 5 times 1, all those are going to be negative. And then, of course, negative 5 times 0 is 0 because anything times 0 is 0. And then negative 5 times negative 1, what happens there? Well, that's where we get 5. So we have to remember that a negative times a negative will give us a positive. So to multiply two signed numbers, there's a really basic thing. Find the product of their absolute values, and then you can attach a sign to the answer. So basically, whenever you're multiplying positive and negatives, just think about multiplying the two numbers as if they were positive. And then at the end, just ask yourself, okay, does the answer have to be positive or negative? Well, if the two numbers you started with were both positive, the answer is positive. If they were both negative, the answer is positive. And if they have opposite signs, they're negative. So that's the easiest thing to remember. If they have the same sign, they're both positive or they're both negative, then the answer is positive. And if they have opposite signs, one of them is positive, one of them is negative, then the answer is negative. So here's a couple quick examples. 3 times negative 2 gives us negative 6, but negative 4 times negative 8 gives us positive 32. Same thing with fractions. A negative 1/4 times a positive 2/3 is still going to give us a negative answer of 1/6. Now, because every two negative factors, right, every time we have two negative things multiplied or divided together will give us a positive number, then this tells us that any even number of negative factors, whether we're multiplying or dividing, will always give us a positive answer. And then, of course, if there's an odd number, it will always be negative. So, because it works for multiplication, we know it works for division, right? A positive divided by a positive will still be positive. 24 divided by 4 is 6. A negative divided by a positive will give us a negative. And then a positive divided by a negative would also give us a negative. And then lastly, a negative divided by a negative will give us a positive. So it's that same idea that if they have the same sign, the answer is positive. If they have opposite signs, the answer is negative, right? So it doesn't matter if it's it doesn't matter if it's multiplication or division. They both act the same way. So the rules for division, just like the rules for multiplication, you can just go ahead and do the division with the two absolute value, obviously the two positive values of your numbers, and then at the end, change the sign to negative if you have to, only when you started with opposite signs. So for instance, 28 divided by negative 4, we can just think of it as 28 divided by 4, get an answer of 7, but then go, we started with opposite signs, one was positive, one was negative, so I know the answer is negative, and it's negative 7. Negative 45 divided by negative 5 is 45 divided by 5, which is 9. They had the same symbols, right? They were both negative, so therefore we leave it, and the answer is just positive 9. Okay, our last example, again, involves fractions, and again, it does not matter. Fractions act the same way as whole numbers, so the rules don't change. If we have a negative divided by a positive, we can think of it as just leave them both positive. We have to remember that when we divide by fractions, we actually flip and multiply, right? So we can do some cancellations. We get an answer of 4/7. Then we remember that one of them was positive, one of them is negative. So the ultimate answer is negative 4/7. So all in all, when we multiply and divide, we can just do the work with all positives. And then at the end, figure out if it's a negative number based on if we had an odd number of negatives within our calculations, right? So when there's only two of them, it's just, do they have opposite signs, i.e. is only one of them negative? But if you were like multiplying or dividing 6 or 7 numbers together, all you have to do is count up how many of them are negative, and if it's an even number, the answer is positive, and if it's an odd number, the answer is negative. It's just that simple. That's all I got for you.